Thank you so much for checking out the bonus video from Jessica's 8 Days of Sensuality Challenge. I'm really excited to participate in this. I just love the challenge that Jessica put on. I'm about halfway through it myself right now and have just found it to be so illuminating and fun and playful and joyous in such a wonderful way of exploring pleasure and sensuality and just kind of our femininity and our womanhood in a lot of ways. So Jessica asked me to share just a short little video on Venus in astrology and how we can work with Venus to kind of better understand our own sensual and pleasure and also relational nature. And so I'm Diana Wesley. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, and I'm actually ruled by the planet Venus. So my rising sign is Taurus, and Taurus is one of the signs associated with Venus. So Venus in my chart plays a really big part. When we're thinking about Venus in astrology, I mentioned it rules the sign Taurus. It also rules the sign Libra, but via kind of these two channels or avenues, it manifests in different ways. So Venus in Taurus rules more self-love, self-worth, self-care, our personal experience of pleasure and sensuality and just kind of that love that we share with and provide to ourselves. So Venus in Taurus may manifest more as kind of indulging in our senses. This can be self-love through touch. It's a very sensual sign. This can be self-love through food, through through rest and relaxation. Taurus really enjoys being kind of comfortable and cozy and just kind of indulging in beautiful scents and beautiful views and just having kind of a beautiful surrounding environment, something to kind of settle into. Whereas with Venus in Libra, we're taking that self-love that we've cultivated, our own experience of pleasure, our own experience of sensuality, and now bringing that into relationship with another person, experiencing love for another, experiencing sensuality and pleasure with another. And so there's kind of these two sides to Venus, and both are constantly kind of at interplay with one another. It's often said that we need to love ourselves and learn how to love ourselves before we can love another. But I'd say that we're kind of, going back and forth between those two sides of Venus a lot. Sometimes it's others in our lives that teach us how to engage in and indulge in more self-love and self-care. A perfect example of that is Jessica offering this challenge. That's another person external to us sharing her experience of love, of self-love, of pleasure, of sensuality, sharing these gifts with us in a very Libran way so that we can settle into our own sensuality and self-love, which would be Taurus. So there is kind of this interplay, and sometimes we find that our relationships really improve our self-love and our self-worth and our ability to care for and love ourselves. But if we're in a space right now where we're more focused on our own self-worth, self-care, self-love, then we're working with that Taurus energy, which then can manifest as more love and experiences of our own worthiness, experiences of pleasure in our relationships. So again, it's kind of always going back and forth between these two. Neither one is less evolved or less advanced than the other. They're both incredibly important to feel balanced in that Venus energy. So in astrology, Venus represents our love. And so love manifests in a lot of different ways. Part of why sensuality and pleasure kind of fall under this overall general kind of category or overarching category of love is because they're a way of showing love to ourselves and a way of showing love to others. There's kind of one of the best ways to tap into that feeling of love and that reserve of love and creative energy within us is through pleasure, is through self-care, is through engaging in activities that improve our sense of self, our self-worth. And so, as we're kind of moving through this challenge and wrapping it up, the whole kind of idea behind the sensuality and pleasure and all of the rest of it is really to tap into these deep and unlimited reserves of love within us. And love is kind of the greatest creative energy of all. So as we tap into that love, we also tap into our creative and procreative energies. So again, Venus in astrology, it rules love, but it also rules creation, creativity, procreation, and also kind of our self-worth, self-care, all of those things that kind of fall under that overarching kind of bucket of love. Similarly, it rules who we are in relationships. And so the more we kind of love ourselves and know what we need to be loved, the more we're able to share that love with others in our own unique way. So looking at the sign that our Venus falls in astrology, looking at any aspects it makes to other planets, looking at the house it falls in, and so on, will all kind of help us better understand how we love, how we express love for ourselves, how we express love for others, and also kind of some of the maybe challenges that we experience around love, around tapping into that pleasure, that sensuality, that ability to really kind of indulge in and explore our senses and our sensual nature. So, for example, Venus in Aries may need a little bit more independence in love. It may need more fire and spice and passion to feel loved and to give love. So when it comes to self-love, someone with a Venus in Aries may need it to be kind of fun and fiery. That element of desire may need to be there. There may be a need to do things in your own way. And actually starting with yourself and your own self-love may be a really fantastic way of kind of coming into deeper love for others, because it is this individualistic, self-oriented sign. Whereas Venus in Taurus may need, the candle-lit baths and to really kind of spend time figuring out their own version of pleasure, their own experiences around self-love before they enter into loving and pleasurable relationships with others. It's an earth sign, so time in nature, sensual experiences around nature, around the four elements, around being physical human bodies on this tangible playground we call Earth. All of those things would be very kind of reflective and representative of Venus and Taurus. Venus in Gemini is a very relational and communicative sign. Venus in Gemini may need, to experience pleasure and things like that. It may need a bit of variation. It may need to experiment and try different things. Communication is huge for Venus and Gemini, and so reading or journaling or things like that may be a great form of self-care and self-love. And in relationships, they're quite capable of learning to communicate their needs and listen to and understand the needs of another. Venus in Cancer needs to be cozy and held and comfortable. It wants to create beautiful, nurturing spaces for others and make them feel nurtured and mothered and at home. Venus in Cancer tends to be very protective of itself and its loved ones, so really honoring kind of your boundaries is great for Venus in Cancer. Allowing yourself to be present is self-love and self-care for Cancer. and just kind of allowing your relationships and your experience of self-love to flow with your moods and flow with your emotions is very nurturing. Venus in Leo needs to play and express itself creatively through its experience of love and self-love. It needs to be dramatic, it needs to dance, it needs to laugh and to tell jokes. All of these things are forms of pleasure and self-care for Venus in Leo, and it also needs those things in its relationships with others. Venus in Virgo is detail-oriented. Virgo is kind of this goddess archetype in astrology. It needs ritual. It wants to make pleasure and self-care and self-love a part of its daily life. And it wants to express that love for others through acts of service. Venus in Virgo is also very tactile. It likes massage and giving massage and healing and supporting others with its hands. It loves cooking for others and nourishing itself and others with good food. These are all forms of pleasure and self-care for Venus in Virgo. Venus in Libra is very other-oriented, but it also needs to remember to turn that pleasure and that self-love onto itself instead of always giving love to others. Venus in Libra is nourished and nurtured by beauty, by balance, by kind of inner harmony. It needs time to kind of step away and be at peace and experience ease. And in relation with others, it has so much love to give and so much to share. But there's also this stronger call than usual for Venus in Libra to also remember to tend to its own pleasure and its own needs. Venus in Scorpio needs depth and intensity and very deep and profound bonds with others in order to feel loved. Venus in Scorpio is probably one of the most likely signs to kind of forsake its own self-care, its own self-love. And so there's an extra strong need for Venus in Scorpio to remember its worthiness through self-care, through embodiment, through coming back to itself, coming back to its senses, coming back to pleasure, and being mindful of any tendencies toward self-denial. Venus in Scorpio has so much sensual and erotic love to offer, but it also needs to remember to turn that back on itself. And through doing so, it has this potential to really transform others through the power of love and itself. Venus in Sagittarius needs to expand itself. It needs to, take adventures with its loved ones and on its own as well. It needs to maintain its own sense of freedom within relationship with others. It likes to laugh and bring optimism and joy into the lives of others. And when it comes to its own sensuality and its own pleasure, so much of that is through kind of expanding its horizons. Learning is a form of pleasure, travel, experiencing people and things from different cultures. And even when it comes to kind of, self-pleasuring, Venus in Sagittarius may enjoy kind of, experimenting with and trying lots of different things. It may want kind of some variation and to explore the realm of sensuality and explore its body just like it likes to explore other countries and landscapes. Venus in Capricorn has such deep and strong and profound wells of love, but similar to Venus in Scorpio, sometimes it practices self-denial and kind of restricts and restrains itself. So more than, again, a lot of other signs, Venus in Capricorn needs to remember it's an earth sign. It's here to be embodied. It's here to experience the senses and its sensuality and pleasure and the earth. And so with Venus in Capricorn, again, like the other earth signs, there's this ability to nourish and nurture itself and experience pleasure and self-love through food, through tangible acts of service, through creation and manifesting incredible works of art and creativity. Venus in Aquarius is highly experimental. It needs to try new things. It needs to innovate. It needs to march to the beat of its own drum. When it comes to pleasure, it may enjoy things that feel a little bit erotic, maybe exploring things kind of similar to Venus and Scorpio that are a bit taboo, a bit unique and different. It's really here to kind of embrace its own unique form of pleasure and sensuality, and its own unique form of relationship as well. And with Venus in Pisces, this is a very empathic, sensitive, dreamy sign. It wants to give so much love to everyone it meets, but it's not always the best at kind of replenishing its own well, replenishing its own kind of self-love and love reserves. So Venus in Pisces also needs to kind of, light the candles, take the bath, indulge in self-care. They're highly imaginative, so even through their dreams and their imagination, they can have, incredible kind of restorative, fantastical experiences of pleasure through meditation, through tantra. All of these things are things that Venus and Pisces can really get behind and can really find pleasure and joy in. And so that's kind of a little bit of, a taste for what each of the Venus signs is kind of likely to manifest as within us. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors that go into it, but that's just kind of a high-level feeling for how that Venus sign may manifest. One thing I want to close with, I know I'm a little over, is just that Venus, of the goddesses in kind of the Greco-Roman pantheon, is considered an alchemical goddess, and that's because she has the power of love behind her. And love is the most transformative energy, the most alchemizing. It can take even the worst of situations, even the worst of emotions, and transform them into something beautiful and pure and energizing. Love is the most unlimited kind of energy in the world, and once we figure out how to embrace that love within ourselves and our experience and our sensuality, and kind of learn how to channel that love into our actions, into energy, to go out in the world and use it to really kind of light up and uplift the world, the better off we'll all be. So we talk about kind of these more finite sources of energy, but in mythology and kind of through this goddess of love, Venus, we recognize that love is the most unlimited, most pure, and most kind of overflowing form of energy that we have available to us. So the more we engage in self-love and these types of practices that Jessica has been leading us through, the more we'll find ourselves feeling energized and empowered and capable of really changing the world, of being our truest selves, and just finding kind of more joy and optimism and faith in our path and our future. Again, I'm sorry I went slightly over, but I hope you enjoyed this, and I really hope that you enjoyed the challenge and that you get a chance to work with Jessica. She's been my coach, and she has been just absolutely amazing and incredible in helping me with my own self-love journey and also my experience with my husband. Okay, thank you all for being here. It's been such a blessing to be a part of this journey with you, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of winter and a beautiful rebirth this spring.